Once you've ruled out the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be true.
And it is not a question of a little occultism or a touch of mysticism, Mr. Benton. It is vampires. There's a host of damned souls at Manor House.
I am thy father's spirit, doomed for a certain term to walk the night.
Here, the old gods aren't dead.
And what of the true god?
He's dead. Can't complain.
People assume that time is a strict progression of cause to effect, but actually, from a non-linear, non-subjective viewpoint, it's more like a big ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
You're listening to Paranormal UK Radio.
Hi everybody, this is Irene and Mark, the host of the Paranormal UK Radio Show, the flagship show of the Paranormal UK Radio Network. And, Mark Johnson.
Yes. Yeah. You mean your co-host?
I had to think. My co-host, Mark Johnson. I'm with my co-host, Mark Johnson.
Okay, here we are. Oh, good Lord. Well, I can forgive you for this because it's been, almost a month since we've done a show. Actually, just a little bit over a month.
Yeah, it's true.
It's been a hell of a month. Well, we took off for...
It's been quite a nice break.
Yeah, well, we took off for Christmas holidays, and of which I had to miss because I had COVID. My wife Sherry and I both had COVID, so we were down for the count for a couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. And I know you had a lot going on your end.
Yeah. I can't think what now, everything, so many things have happened that I literally cannot put my finger on any particular one thing.
Everything has just been a blur these last few weeks.
It has been a blur.
Yeah.
It has been a blur. Yeah, but you're over COVID now, you and your wife.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing.
I mean,
and you did get your Christmas, didn't you?
Yeah,
2 weeks late, but you've got it.
Yeah, we celebrated Christmas with her family about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks after Christmas, because not only did she and I have it, but her sister had it as well. So, and her my father-in-law has not been doing well, so we wanted to make sure to stay very far away from him and not risk him at all.
Yeah, very good idea. And what else has been happening? Have you been anywhere since then? No?
Well, I've had COVID, so no.
No. Well, I know, but it's been a week and a half. Did you go anywhere at the weekend or whatever?
I just got out a little bit.
Have you done anything, Mark?
Just got out a little bit locally. That's it. Gone to dinner. That's about it. But, COVID...
Yeah, my life.
I was saying COVID has been running rampant over here. I don't know how it's been doing over where you are. Well,
according to the television, pretty bad, but it's getting a lot better now.
Yeah.
It's, eased off and one thing or another, but it's still a hell of a lot of NHS staff off of work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and trying to get a doctor over here is like trying to get gold out of the back garden.
Yep. It's, what's the old Chinese curse? May you live in interesting times.
Yeah, I'd say we certainly do. We certainly do. And my life at the moment since Christmas has been absolutely boring.
Well, now we got a show here to hopefully make things less boring.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, at least I have snow now, so now winter is here.
Oh, shut up. I've got rain. I've had rain for about 3 months now.
See, I knew that would...
I've been praying for snow.
I knew that would make you jealous.
I know. I love the snow. I really do love it.
Well,
I love getting out there, playing with the dogs in it. You
don't get that much snow. Snowmen. You don't get that much snow where you live in the UK.
Well, we used to, because this is the valleys of Wales. And years and years ago in Wales, it used to be so deep you had to dig yourself out. But now we hardly get it. All we seem to get is rain. If we're going to get snow, it usually comes in February. First couple of weeks in February or something like that. But for the last couple of years, it's only been sprinklings. Yeah, not even enough to make a snowball.
Climate change.
So I'm pretty jealous.
You can have
climate change. Yeah.
You can have some of mine. We just got some the other day, and it was 5 inches of heavy, wet snow. It's what we call heart attack snow. Try shoveling it too much, you can get a heart attack.
Oh, but it's usually quite deep there, isn't it?
Well, sometimes
you really do get some snowfalls there where you are.
We can. It's worse up north of me, up in New York and Massachusetts and Connecticut. But they, we get what they call nor'easters, and they can dump like feet of snow at a time. But Buffalo, New York usually gets it worse than us. I mean, they usually get 7 feet of snow in a single snowfall. I could do without that. Oh, well.
You can what?
I can do without that.
Get your skis on, boy. Get down that mountainside.
Actually,
get a sledge out. Make a little sledge or something, rather than, slide down. Have fun.
Well, I plan on actually going skiing here in a couple of weeks. I got a little ski holiday planned, so...
Have you?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm jealous again.
Yeah. For my birthday, going away for a ski trip.
Where are you going?
Lake Placid, where they had the 1984 Olympics. Winter Olympics.
Oh, yeah.
Lake Placid, New York.
Joking. Yeah, and are you going to ski, Mark?
Yes, I used to ski all the time when I lived in California.
I want the photographs.
Oh,
I want to see photographs go up on Facebook.
Oh, you'll see them.
You and Sherry skiing.
No, it'll just be me and her sister. Sherry doesn't ski.
Doesn't she?
Nah.
Oh, she's a wise woman.
Yeah. She'll be sitting in the bar having Irish coffees.
Very wise woman.
Very wise woman, yes. Before we get into the show, I did want to make, not exactly an announcement, but just acknowledge that a paranormal researcher that we know, we've interviewed on the show before, Butch Witkowski. He was very well respected in both ufology and cryptozoology circles, and he passed away this weekend. Not sure what happened. I hear it might be natural causes, but our thoughts go out to his family.
Of course.
Butch was a good guy, very, very knowledgeable.
He was a nice man.
Yes, very nice.
Yeah, he was. Okay, then. So,
all right.
I'm sorry about that. Really sorry.
Yeah.
He was a nice man.
Yeah, I got to meet him a couple of times. Phenomenology, whenever they had it in Pennsylvania. It's been a few years, though.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we go ahead and get into the show? We have a very different type of subject tonight, and it's something that I'm also very personally interested in. We are
very close to your heart.
Oh, yes. We are speaking with author Shirley Blancke, who has her book, The Way of Abundance and Joy, which focuses on an Ecuadorian shaman, Don Alberto Taxo. And so, Shirley, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark.
Now,
I gather that you are in the U.S. and not in the U.K.
Yes, I'm in northern New Jersey.
That's why he's got snow, Shirley. That's why he's got snow and I haven't.
Now, Shirley, you're here in the Northeast too, aren't you?
Sorry.
Shirley, you're here in the Northeast too, aren't you?
I am, yes. I'm in Massachusetts.
Ah.
Yeah.
So you'll sometimes get those heavy snows that we were talking about.
Yes, although not much this year. Yeah.
Keep your fingers crossed.
Yeah.
So, Shirley...
Shirley, you won't be going skiing, will you? Shirley?
Yes. Yeah.
I said you're not going to be. You're not going to be. I saying you're not going to be going skiing. No.
No. I'm past that. Not that I ever did ski, because my father decided that I might break my leg and miss my exams at university, so I never learned how to do it. Yeah.
No, that's a good thing.
So, Shirley, I definitely wanted to talk with you. We wanted to talk about your book, and of course, Don Alberto Taxo from Ecuador. Now, how did you? First of all, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then how did you come to meet Don Alberto?
Okay. Well, it's a long story, and you probably don't want to hear the whole thing, but I will try to give you a little bit of background. I grew up on my grandparents' farm in Bedfordshire during the Second World War, and then, but when I went to college, I learned about shamanism just from reading, but at the end of studying anthropology, there's not really a whole lot you can do with that, particularly in the UK, or at least it wasn't at that time. And I got the chance to come over to the Harvard Radcliffe Business Program for a year. So I did that, and at the end of the year, met my husband, who is American, so I've been here, since the age of about 24. But I really, didn't meet Don Alberto until about 8 or 10 years ago. And in the meantime, I've done a whole lot of other things. I'm an archaeologist, and I also got into sacred dance, which has a sort of a shamanic aspect to it. I'm wondering, actually, if your listeners know what shamanism is, or if I should say a little bit about that.
Well, we've mentioned it before in the past, but it's been a while, so if you would like to go ahead and explain it from your perspective, please feel free.
Yeah, okay. Well, I see it as a way, shamanic journeying, which is using a drum and visualizing. It's a way of connecting with your unconscious, or with your, whatever you want, how you understand this, your source of creativity, whether it's your higher self, whether it's your unconscious, or whatever it is. But it's where the best ideas come from, where the scientists and the mathematicians get their ideas, as well as the artists. So it's a way of, I think the drumming kind of changes your brainwaves so that you can connect better with that source of visualization. It's also a dream world. And I think in the West, we always tend to think, well, dreams aren't real. But they have their own reality, and they can give you important information. So I studied actually with I'm an American anthropologist who was also a shaman for about 10 years before I met Don Alberto Taxo. And meeting him and what I did with the book was really a personal journey. It has nothing to do with my professional life as an archaeologist. So how did I meet him? A friend of mine said, "Oh, I know somebody who's hosting a South American shaman who's coming to speak. It's about 15 minutes away from your house. Would you like to go?" So I said, sure. I said, I haven't heard anybody like that speak in a long time. So when the time came, it turned out to be a very hot June evening. And I thought, do I really want to do this? And I don't know. I've not found some previous talks by other people that interesting. But I decided I'd go. And then as I got closer to the place, I found myself feeling very nervous and sort of excited. And I thought, what is this about? Why should I be feeling this way? It doesn't make any sense. So I get there, and he gives a low-key talk, a low-key introduction to shamanic journeying, playing his drum, singing. And during the intermission, I was looking around at the literature that he had set out, and I realized that he was a shaman of the 4 elements, earth, air, fire, and water, because I didn't know anything about him previously. And then I thought, oh, my goodness, well, I think I ought to let him know that the dance group that I'm in is doing a dance for water at the Old North Bridge in Concord. And it's a dance really to try to counteract pollution. It's a global water initiative. I know there are people all around the world who have been doing this. So at the end of the program, I got hold of the interpreter because he doesn't speak English, and asked her to convey this to him. And he was facing away from me. He was probably about 15 feet away from me. And he suddenly wheeled around, and there was the most extraordinary light, like a laser light, came out of his eyes and curled on its way to mine, and when they entered mine, just dazzled me. And I thought, whoa, what is that? And but at that moment, the interpreter asked me a question. I didn't have time to pursue it, and then things moved on. But I thought, well, I've never encountered anything like that before, and I was, of course, immediately hooked to know, what this was.
Was this a light?
So I asked various people I knew who had some knowledge of shamanism. Nobody could tell me anything. And then the lady who had been hosting him that evening said to me, well, would you like to accompany me to Ecuador, because I want to try and get more healing from Don Alberto. She had had a bad fall. So I said, sure. And she was planning on going the next summer. So I had, about 9 months in which to relearn Spanish. I mean, I learned in high school, but I couldn't communicate really at that point. So by the time I went with her, I was able to hold a basic conversation at least. So eventually I had a chance to ask him about this. I said, what was that light? So he said, well, it was a symbol. And I said, a symbol of what? So he said, we've known each other in previous lives. So this just kind of knocked me backwards, because, previous lives are not part of my worldview at all. So anyway, that was the start of it. And then, things developed. He became a friend, and then eventually I had a dream of a kind I don't usually have at all, which I thought I should mention to him, and then he asked me to write a book. So that's how it all came about in a nutshell.
Now, have you ever written a book before?
Sorry, have I what?
Have you ever written a book before?
Have I written a book? I've written academic papers, but I've not written a book of that kind, no.
I'm very curious when you mentioned that the light that seemed to come from his eyes, was that something that you saw physically, or was it something more in your mind's eye?
Well, it appeared to be physical. I mean, I can't, I probably should tell you about another experience later where, there can be a real confusion about what's physical or what's in your mind's eye. But, certainly it seemed to me to be physical because it dazzled me when it happened.
Yeah, but Shirley, sometimes these things that we think are physical aren't physical at all. They are in the mind eye, but they're so clear, so real looking that you can't tell the difference. It's a bit like when you hear AVPs and EVPs, Mark. Audible voice phenomena and EVPs, obviously electronic voice phenomena. When you hear an AVP, it sounds like somebody's actually talking to you, but it's in your head. It's in your mind.
Well, unless in those instances more than one person hears it and it's picked up on recorders, so sometimes it is audio phenomenon. So, but I understand what you're saying in regards to Shirley's experience. Maybe it just was in her mind's eye, but seemed so real. Now, here would be a question for you, Shirley. Did anybody else notice it, or was it just you?
No, it's just me.
Just you.
But nobody else was in the immediate vicinity. Well, of course, the interpreter was, and so I think she obviously didn't because, she asked me a question about something else immediately. So, no, I wouldn't say anybody else.
It was so clear to you, so clear that you can't tell the difference whether it is in your mind or whether it is actually physical. I've seen things like this myself, so I understand that side of it.
So,
but he obviously recognized you.
You're breaking up a little bit there, Irene.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm having trouble hearing you. Yeah.
She was saying, so something about you made him pay attention to you or take notice of you, like he recognized something in you.
Yes. And, he definitely felt that I was somebody he'd known before. And so at a later point, when I had this chance to ask him about it, he said we'd known each other in previous lives, and I said, what were we doing? So he said, well, we were healers in an indigenous context in Colombia. But then he cut me off, and he said, however, the past is not important. What is important is the present, right? So, I couldn't inquire further about that, but he definitely believes in previous lives. He seemed to have some memory of previous lives, which isn't something I have any experience of at all. So, that was that was hard. But he did. He's a very warm man. He's a very sort of gentle, has a very healing presence, and so he's something you can take to very quickly, as I did, and so he developed into a good friend, in fact.
Now, when you were talking with him, did you study under him, or was it just you having conversations with him and having this connection?
No, I didn't study with him at all. And I'll tell you a bit more about what happened, I think, when I went to Ecuador the first time with this lady, because he started immediately to teach us what he teaches and what is in his book, which I want to say more about, but we'll get to that. And so he took us on a road trip, right, car, which we rented. And it started out, he told us at the beginning this was going to be a pilgrimage or a spiritual trip. So he started out with a fire outside and blowing his conch shell the 4 directions and praying in Quechua. His language is Quechua, which is a dialect of Quechua in Peru. It's all basically the same language. So I don't know what he was saying, but I'm sure he was praying to Mother Earth and probably all of the elements. So then he took us in the car, and he was doing things like, if it rained a little bit, he'd stick his hand out of the window to feel the rain and give thanks for the rain. And or he'd stop and pick a leaf and give a leaf to us to smell. Or he'd admire, the color of the scent of a flower. So he was getting us to relate to nature in a very direct way. We stopped at one point. There are various things that happened, but I won't go into everything, but he stopped at one point at a sacred lake. And in fact, at that point, his partner and young son were with us too. And he asked my friend and me to go. There was a kind of a promontory that had been built out into the lake. It was a grassy banks. So they were sitting on one side of this bank to have a picnic, and he told us to go around the other side and give thanks to the lake. And I think he gave us probably crusts of bread to make an offering to the lake. So we both, the two of us, went in different directions. So we were all alone. And so I made my offering, and then I thought, well, what do I think I'm doing? I mean, I'm supposed to be Christian. I mean, I do go to church and so on. And I thought, what am I doing praying to a lake? And then I decided, well, I can just give thanks for being here. It doesn't have to be, I don't have to have scruples about this. So I did that. And then very quickly, I saw out of the corner of my eye, I saw Don Alberto coming around. Well, I didn't see him come around, but I saw him, I assumed he had come around the bank, right? And he was at the water's edge. He had a condor feather, which he dipped into the water and flicked it at me. And it hit me hard in the chest to the water. And then he dipped it again, flicked it again. It hit me hard in the face, just so that, in fact, I stepped backwards. So that was it. When I looked straight in his direction, there was nobody there. So I thought, well, this is odd. I mean, it seems like it was some kind of initiation, but I would have thought he'd say something to me about it if it was. So I didn't really have time to think about it the rest of the day. We were very busy going, visiting various places and seeing stalls of, goods set out for people to buy. And I didn't have a chance to think about it, so I was in bed that night. And then it suddenly hit me, and I thought, wait a minute. I didn't get wet. My shirt isn't wet. My face didn't get wet. I didn't have to dry myself off. This must have been a vision. So I decided I would, talk to him, of course, the next day about it. And so I said to him, I was a bit diffident. I said, were you really even there? So he said, no, I wasn't there. And then his eyes lit up and he became very animated and he said, he said, that was the power of water. It wasn't water itself. It was the power, in other words, the spirit of water. And he said, that's a very important gift for you. It means that you can use that in healing. So this is, the experience that I had where, for the first time in my life, I really didn't know which level of reality I was in. I mean, when I've done shamanic journeying, I've known that I've been in an alternate reality, in a dream world. In this case, I thought it had actually happened. I mean, it was in the middle of the day. It was not a sunny day, particularly. And I thought this was, something I had actually experienced. And it was only later, when I thought about it, I realized it couldn't have happened that way. So that was, quite an experience, and it made me question our whole view of reality in the Western world. I think, there are aspects of it that we have forgotten how to access. I say forgotten because I think probably in the past, the witches, the wise women, knew about this, and then they were persecuted, and so we lost the information. So it is now still in those parts of the indigenous world that have not been greatly impacted by the West. So that's where, Don Alberto's teaching comes in, that he feels he, needs to convey some of this to us, but there's a whole backstory to that to do with the condor and the eagle.
What I find fascinating, and it strikes me right up my alley, is the vision that you had and the experiences that you had. See, I've always been attracted to shamanism and the practices of the indigenous cultures all over the world, North America, South America, Australia, Nepal, where even though their practices may differ, they're all tapping into what I feel is the same types of energy. And it connects you, for our listeners who aren't as familiar with the ideas of shamanism, it's a very nature-based spirituality. I'm not going to call it a religion. It's not a religion. It's more of just a way of life. And it really does connect you to your own higher self, the higher spirits that are there to help you, your guides, even the God source. And you can touch things and connect with things in a way that, and this is just my own personal opinion, that the mainstream religions have all forgotten about. So the experiences that you had, first with him looking at you in the eyes, and then the experience by the lake, I think are very profound, and were definitely designed to get your attention, to help you connect more with what was going to be coming up.
Yes, and I've found from trying to practice his teachings for a few years now that it's had a beneficial effect on me because, growing up in England and growing up on a farm, I used to roam around the fields and the woods, and I felt very connected to nature. I would pick bluebells and primroses and look at the moon at night out of my bedroom window, and I knew the names of a lot of these things. I knew what they were. And then when I came to this country, I felt adrift. I didn't know what any of the plants were or the trees or anything else. So I tried to learn what they were, because it was head learning, learning the names of things. And I realized after a bit, this was not getting me to the place where I had been before. So I continued to feel a certain loss there until, I got this teaching from Don Alberto, and it has made me able to connect on an emotional level with the natural world. And I think a benefit of that is that you really feel supported by the natural world. It's a kind of reciprocal feeling. So you're not feeling as alone as you might do otherwise. So I think that's the big benefit of it.
That And we're meant to be connected to the earth and the natural world. What the world that we've created, especially in Western society, I think takes us out of that, and it corrupts us. It poisons us and pulls us away, and cancels out that connection for so many people that, we have it drilled right out of us from a young age, either through religion, schooling, just the culture in general, so that if you would mention shamanism to the average person, they'd look at you like you had three heads. And it's something that has been around for tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years.
Right. Yeah. And in fact, it exists. I think if you sort of read the New Testament with a different viewpoint than the church has got to, that you can see that Jesus was probably a very similar kind of shaman. So at least my knowing Don Alberto has helped me to appreciate that better. But that's maybe not where most people want to go, and they don't need to go there. I'd like to say a little bit about, why he is doing this, because it comes out of an Andean prophecy about the eagle and the condor flying together in the same sky. And I think, a lot of people here, I don't know about the UK, have some sense of that, that the eagle represents the north and an orientation towards logic, and the condor the south and more of a feeling and awareness orientation. But I don't think they understand what the prophecy is really about, which is not just that the people from the two places get together, which is good if they do, but also to have some knowledge of the other side of things. If you're very logically oriented, then to begin to learn more about the feeling and the awareness side of it. And that's what he's trying to teach here in the North. And this didn't get started until, I think, the end of the 1990s, when the South American Shamanic Council decided that it was okay to share some of this information, that we were coming into a new age, that the world is turning over. The word for that is Pashakuti, and that we're going to go through a lot of turmoil, which seems is happening, and then we'll come out in a new place. So he's really devoted a lot of his time and energy to trying to teach people these, I think mainly in North America, but other places too, not least his own territory, Ecuador.
There's a lot of what you said there that I completely agree with. When you mentioned about Jesus, I absolutely believe that. And also this whole age that we're in right now, a lot of different teachers or psychics and other people have all mentioned that this is a very special time, and things are probably get worse before they're going to get better, but there's all these prophecies of ascending to a new plane of existence, which hopefully we're around to see.
Well, yes, and what Donovan did most recently was that, how much it really changes, and if we succeed depends on us. He's been teaching to try and project love, and it's hard to do when you don't really care for people that you feel as you project love towards. But he said it's very important, that energy be directed out into the world. So that's what his followers are trying to do at this point.
Yes, very much so. That's what something I've talked about on, I have another show that I do sometimes called Astral Perceptions, where I've talked about the fact that, coming from a place of love and looking at your fellow human beings, even though you may not agree with people, it's still, we all come from the same source. We all need to be working together and acting as one. We're still individuals, but we all have different missions here. But again, we do need to come at it from a position of love, and I think that's very important.
Yeah. And I think for me, to go back to the book, the first part of the book is about his upbringing, and I think that's important because it shows that he really, had a lot of problems that he had to overcome, and not least the fact that his father, who was an important mentor for him and was also an important shaman, somebody deliberately ran him down on the street, right in down front of Don Alberto when Don Alberto was only 19 years old. And it was a terrible experience. And he went off and shut himself away for a bit and didn't eat. And then the vision started to come. And his father came to him in vision and said, well, our ways have parted, but you have important work to do. You need to go on. You need to stay alive. And that was enough to, make him pull himself together and continue. So to be able to project love after something like that, I think is really very remarkable. Get to a place where you're not hitting back.
Yes. Well, that goes right in with Jesus turning the other cheek. It's again not striking back, but again taking it from that position of love. Now, when you were meeting with him, talking with him, right away he decided you were a healer. So how did he arrive at that conclusion, and what were your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't really know. I mean, he decided by the end of knowing me for 2 weeks that I was what they call a mama yachak. A yachak is the healer, the shaman, and at the time I didn't know what these words meant. I didn't know what the term meant. And I thought, well, mama yachak must just mean a medicine woman, Then I said to him, how can you say that to me? I don't know anything about your traditions. And he said, we recognize people in other traditions. So he clearly, I don't know, sized me up somehow. I can't, that's his intuition. And I don't know how he arrived at that, but he did think I was a healer. And the interesting, I should say, and I did tell him this, that I belonged to a healing group in the church. But that was something that I only joined because of the shamanic training. And I thought, well, how am I going to practice this? Because most people are not, into shamanic healing. So I decided, just at that point, somebody I knew in the church was starting this healing group. So I joined it. But this wasn't something that I ever really thought of doing. Although I remember when I was, a teenager, the mother of a friend of mine said, "Oh, you have healing hands." And I thought, that's an odd statement, and never took it seriously. I was sort of more of an intellectual type. So to come to this late in life is not something I chose. It's more something that happened to me in a way, But his intuition is very trained, I would say, to size people up. So I can't tell you how he got there, but he decided that was the case.
So what type of training did you go through? Was that down there in Ecuador, or was that back up here in the States?
With the Shamanic Training, or I didn't do any training with him other than what I've told you about already.
Mm-hmm.
But let me see. Well, going back into the 1980s, right? I mean, I had been reading about shamanism for about 20 years. And then I began saying, well, maybe I might take a workshop in it just to see about this. And so I took one with Michael Harner, who is a very well-known both anthropologist and shaman, who wrote the classic book, The Way of the Shaman.
Which I have.
And you know that?
Yes.
Yeah. And so, I did a weekend workshop with him, and I had a very interesting experience with that, but I didn't think it was for me. And looking back on it, I think I was scared somehow that I wasn't sure, about getting into this. And so that I just kind of forgot about it for a while. And then, as being part of this dance group, there's something called the Sacred Dance Guild, and they have festivals all over the world. So we took part in a festival in Hawaii, and I learned Hawaiian male-style hula for 4 days. It was taught by a kahuna, a specialist in that, indigenous specialist. And it was an extraordinary experience because the daytime I was on a high. It was a very joyous experience with the drumming and everything, and I think the drumming put me into an altered state. Because then at night I found myself really grieving an old friend, another indigenous medicine man, but I'd lost a few years before and never really grieved, But so I found myself in this grieving process at night, and then in the daytime it was full of joy. So I was swinging backwards and forwards like this emotionally, and which wasn't comfortable for me with my old, British stiff upper lip. And
I know that one.
Yeah. So then when I got home again, I was describing this to a friend, and she said, "Oh, I know just the book for you." And so she gave me a book by Hank Westerman, who is another American anthropologist and shaman, called Vision Seeker. And I read the book, and I found that I felt very connected to him, both with the kind of experience he'd had as an anthropologist, and also, I don't know, he grew up in New York, and I had been working at the American Museum of Natural History in New York, which was one of his favorite places. So I thought, well, I wonder if he would be the right teacher for me. And so I sent him an email out of the blue, and I thought, well, either I'll hear or I won't. And he wrote a very gracious email back again, took every paragraph in my email and answered it. And at the end of it said, well, why didn't you come and take a course of mine? So that was the beginning of a 10-year relationship with him, learning art and shamanism from him. And so at the end of all of that, he said to me, well, why don't you... he had actually also written a book called The Bowl of Light, which is about the teachings of a Hawaiian shaman who was a close friend of his and who was killed in a motor accident about the time I met Hank. So he said to me, why don't you try and write a book about indigenous wisdom from some indigenous shaman? So I didn't really have the opportunity to do that until I met Don Alberto, and I thought, well, maybe this is it, And Hank actually wrote a foreword, a very generous foreword for the book, and a few months later he passed on too. So I was very glad that he had seen what I had written and had contributed to it, because I've had this long-term student relationship with him. So it's been a long process over my life. I mean, I'm not one of the people who've, like, say, John Perkins, who actually did write some, I interviewed him for my book. He had this very earth-shattering experience in the Amazon where he almost lost his life, and the shamans there saved him. So that turned him all around. And usually that seems to be the pattern of people who write books. But it really wasn't the pattern for me. I think I sort of slowly developed in that direction, and then it's got deeper over time.
So with the type of healing that you learned, I mean, were you doing, how did you put that into practice? Was it something that you were doing all the time, something that was just occasionally?
Yeah, well, I've not found a way of doing it all the time with that. So the shamanic healing with the use of earth, air, fire, and water, I've not had very much opportunity to use. A few people have asked me. So mostly what I feel I can do is the hands-on healing in the church. But of course, with this COVID epidemic, that hasn't been happening either. So that's the whole healing bit as far is concerned is kind of waiting, I think, till we can get back together again.
Yeah, I can't wait for this to be over. Let me ask you what made you decide to write the book?
Well, because I mentioned, Hank Russelman had put this idea in my head about doing it. So then, I didn't set out to write a book about Don Alberto at all, because I'd really only known him for a couple of years. And then my family, we went for a vacation on the Mayan Riviera, as it's called, in the eastern coast of Mexico, where there's lovely beaches, warm water and so on. We were swimming, and it was very relaxing. This was at the end of an awful, New England winter. And so one night I woke up in the early morning, having had a very vivid dream that I think, happened just before the early morning before I woke. And what the dream was I was standing in a cave looking out into a sunny landscape. And way in the horizon, there was a dark shadow came, and as it got higher in the sky, I saw it was an eagle. And the eagle got bigger and bigger and bigger, so until its wings really shut out the light in the whole sky. And then finally it came and it landed just in front of me, in front of the cave. And so then I saw that it had the face of a Native American lady that I know. At that moment, there was a ballpoint pen that sprouted some little wings, and it started sort of fluttering around between us. And I thought, what is that? And then the eagle laughed, and she said, well, now we know why you write so well. You have a magic pen. And that was it. Then I woke up. Oh, I did notice a little bit that the pen had a design. I noticed the colors. I didn't know what the design was. So when I woke up, I thought, actually, that was a pen that somebody sent me in the mail a few days ago. I didn't ask for this pen. It just arrived, and I have it with me. So I looked at it, and the colors, were the colors of the dream. It was a pale blue with a black design. And I saw that the black design was a lot of different feathers of different sizes. I thought, feathers, all right. Well, the word in Spanish for both pen and feather is pluma. And it came into my head at that moment. I thought, so why did I think that? But I took it as a suggestion that I should mention the dream to Don Alberto. So I did. And the upshot of that was then he asked me to write a book. So,
wow.
Yeah. He asked me, well, a book had been written about him in Spanish in Ecuador, and so he asked me if I'd be interested in translating that. And when I read it, it was written by an anthropologist, and reading it, I thought that I would be interested in translating the interviews that she made with him, but I wanted to do something different with the material because she had set it in an anthropological context, and I wanted to make it more into a story that I thought would have a wider interest and wider appeal. And then I said to him, well, I haven't known you for very long. How about asking some of your long-term students if they might want to write something about the impact you've had on their lives? And he thought that was a good idea, so he gave me a list of people. So I ended up, with the first two parts of the book being. Oh, he also wanted me to write about my experiences with him. So the first two parts of the book are partly translated. They're about his early life and his teachings, and then it's my experiences woven around that. And then the third part is his students and associates, some North American shamans, Itzhak Beery, as well as John Perkins.
Now,
that's a very interesting book, Mark. You should get that.
Yes, I'm going to pick it up. Actually, the book is actually not published yet. It's going to be out in just a few weeks. Do you know what date it's supposed to be released?
Yes, in the U.S. it's supposed to be released February the 8th. And in the U.K. it's coming out in March, and it's being distributed by Simon & Schuster.
So you can
watch out for that then.
So you can get the book not only your local bookstore, Waterstones or Barnes & Noble, but also on Amazon. In the U.S., it's published by Inner Traditions, who, we've actually worked with Manzanita and them at Inner Traditions for a very long time now. They've given us some very great guests. So now the name of the book again is called The Way of Abundance and Joy, the Shamanic Teachings of Don Alberto Taxo. So for people looking for the book in the U.S., it'll be out in about 2.5 weeks. Now,
yes, it can be ordered ahead online too. It can be pre-ordered.
And would that be through Inner Traditions or also through Amazon?
Yes, you got Inner Traditions website, innertraditions.com.
Okay, all right. And now you mentioned something before the show. And I think I wanted to bring it up here now, because I do believe in the power of prayer. You mentioned that Don Alberto Taxo is currently dealing with COVID.
Yes, right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I guess it's hitting him pretty hard. So, I'll ask our listeners if you can all keep him in your prayers, send positive healing thoughts his way. While he gets through this. That would be great. Yeah. Okay.
That would be good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Shirley, it's been wonderful talking with you. about the book and your experiences. I'm definitely going to be picking up a copy and reading it as soon as it's out.
And Shirley, you say it'll be in the UK in March, yes?
In March, yes.
Okay, I will keep an eye out for that one.
So Simon & Schuster is distributing it, so I gather it'll be, in bookshops all over.
Yeah. Well, our biggest bookshop now over here is Waterstones, so W.H. Smith don't do as much anymore. So it's Waterstones. More than likely everybody you'll pick it up in Waterstones in March.
Okay. Well, thank you again, Shirley, for coming on. This has been a great conversation, and we're looking forward to reading the book.
Yeah.
And I tell you something, Shirley.
Yeah.
After listening to you, because I didn't know an awful lot about shamanism, except for what Mark's told me in the past, but after listening to you, I'm going to look more into this.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I think it existed in Western Europe, and perhaps particularly it still exists in the Celtic areas, perhaps a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it got suppressed,
Mm-hmm.
So the idea is, that it's really a pan-human capacity. We can get it back again.
Yeah,
and another important thing is about shamanism is that it gets renewed each time. I mean, it's a personal experience, so it doesn't depend on dogma or belief, So the shamans have to bring their ideas up to date, or teach differently in different generations.
Oh, that's interesting.
Well, we'll definitely have to be talking more about that, Irene.
Yeah,
I have some things I can share with you as well. Well, that brings us to the end of the program, so I want to thank everyone for tuning in to another edition of the Paranormal UK radio show, the flagship show here on the Paranormal UK radio network. Just want to assure everyone that, I know we've been off for the last month, but we've got a whole month worth of guests booked.
Who have we got next week, Mark?
You're going to make me look?
Oh, I'll have a look. Hold on a minute. 1 minute. Just sing a song or something.
La, 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 la. Yeah,
just keep singing.
We'll figure it out. Well, people can look on the website.
Carl Abrahamson?
Carl Abramson, yes.
Yes, wrote a book on Anton LaVey and the Church of Satan.
Yes, that's going to be an interesting conversation.
Yes, it will.
Well, we've had our good friend Eric Werner, a.k.a. Corvus Nocturnum, on. So that's not going to be a new one for us. So anyway, everyone, thank you for tuning in. We'll be back next week. So you all have a great week, and we will catch you later. Irene, and where can everybody find us?
Everywhere, people, everywhere.
All right. Well,
just about everywhere.
Just about everywhere these days.
Amazon.
Yeah.
TuneIn Radio, TalkStream Live, Google
Apple.
Radio, up in the clouds.
Apple. Yes.
Apple.
Yes.
Yeah, everywhere.
All right. Well, have a great night. And Irene, I'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.